offered through a person's job, meaning through the company that they're employed at. Meaning these aren't retired senior citizens sitting at home, but rather these are working age adults. And Lincoln National is, of course, to their most recent annual statement. It showed a dramatic increase in the number of group payouts. In 2019, which was the year right before the pandemic, it was a little over 2020, which is when the pandemic began. They paid out approximately $548 million, which is about a 9% increase. However, in the year 2021, which was the second year of the pandemic, as well as the first year of the mass vaccination program, which saw almost 260 million Americans get the shot, well, Lincoln National paid out a stunning $1.4 billion. And of course, if you do the math, that is a whopping 164% increase over the previous year. And I should mention that these are group life insurance policies that are offered through a person's job, meaning through the company that they're employed at. All right, the sponsor of today's episode is a phenomenal company called AMAC. That's AMAC, and it stands for the Association of Mature American Citizens. They are quite literally one of the fastest growing conservative organizations in all of America, and you should consider joining for three main reasons. The first is the money-saving benefit, because as a member of AMAC, you get access to a ton of discounts at many different war, detailing how the Chinese Communist Party has a 100-year plan to destroy America. Here's a trailer.
The American people are standing on the edge of a cliff.
I'm a father. Like every dad, I want to see my kids grow and prosper. And I'm afraid for their future.
This is the most ambitious regime in history.
The Epoch Times investigation team had studied the CCP for years. But this time, what we uncovered was yielding evidence beyond our imagination.
Hide our strength and bide our time.
Yes, we're in World War III now.
We are in a world war with the Chinese Communist Party without realizing it.
The new Chinese military is the only one being developed anywhere in the world today that is specifically configured to fight the United States of America.
CDC's own website showing explosive growth in the number of excess deaths. What appears to be happening is that over the past 2 years now, the rate of people who die in a given year has been steadily increasing and then exponentially so. Meaning that the rate of excess mortality, the number of people who weren't forecasted to die in a given year but did, has been spiking. Now, on our program previously, we've already done a deep dive into some of the CDC's own numbers. However, just a few days ago, there was another development, another, you can say, data point that we can add to the growing body of knowledge surrounding the spike in excess mortality. And this new data point came from, of all places, a funeral company. But not just any funeral company. It came from the quarterly earnings report of Service Corporation International, otherwise known as SCI, the largest for-profit funeral operator in all of North America. And just like you would imagine, with excess mortality rates going through the roof and the Google search results for the term died suddenly also appearing to spike, well, it's a good time to be in the funeral business. That's because, according to SCI's earnings call, well, they had another great fiscal quarter. In fact, so far, in the year 2020...
Avoiding conflict. That's the goal for moving the U.S.-China relationship forward, following a meeting of the country's presidents in Bali, Indonesia this week. So what now? Did the meeting improve the relationship? And what about human rights? Is President Xi addressing concerns about violations? Did Biden demand that he do so? Here to weigh in on President Biden's first meeting as president with China's President Xi is Washington spokesman for the Uyghur people, Salih Hudayar. He's Prime Minister of the East Turkestan government in exile. Salih, at the start of their 3.5-hour meeting in Bali, President Xi Jinping said he's ready for a candid discussion with President Biden, and Biden said he was looking forward to an open and honest dialogue. The White House says President Biden raised the issue of human rights for the Uyghurs. So how satisfied are you about that?
We're not really satisfied. In fact, we disapproved the meeting because it's unbefitting of the leader of the free world to be meeting with a Chinese dictator that is engaging in genocide, an active genocide at this very moment.
The SAR showed that Hunter Biden was conducting business with suspected human traffickers. The money gained through influence peddling was one for coming out today. Today we're going to provide you with something that you all aren't used to with respect to congressional investigations, and that's evidence. Committee Republicans have spoken with multiple whistleblowers from numerous schemes involving the Biden family, reviewed Hunter Biden's laptop, and received documents of previously unknown transactions. What we found are business plans aimed at targets around the world based on influence peddling, including with people closely tied to foreign governments like China and Russia. We also found plans made to the United States where the Biden family swindled investors of hundreds of thousands of dollars, all with Joe Biden's participation and knowledge. He personally participated in meetings and phone calls. Documents show that he was a partner with
Michigan Tech is like
new 10 commandments.
Is it 10?
10? That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, good catch.
How and why the Guidestones were built has never been answered. Here's what we do know. A man using the alias R.C. Christian shows up at the Elberton Granite Finishing Company on a summer day in 1979, and he tells them he wants to build the Georgia Guidestones. Now, this guy's got money, a lot of money. The only thing he absolutely demands is that he remain completely anonymous. To this day, no one has been able to figure out who he is. The stones were unveiled during a public ceremony in 1980. They were controversial immediately. Supporters like Yoko Ono, and come on, of course Yoko Ono supports him, right? Praised their message as a stirring call to rational thinking. But opponents attacked them, calling them the 10 Commandments of the Antichrist. The first 9 seem to be a benign call to higher thinking. Don't be a cancer on the earth. Seek harmony. Balance personal rights with social duties. Avoid petty laws. Resolve international conflicts in a world court. Protect people with fair laws. Rule with reason. Unite humanity with a new language. Guide reproduction wisely. But it's the final directive on the stones that sets off everyone's spider sense.
Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature?
Wow.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's a directive?
The directive makes some believe that the Guidestones are calling for the mass murder of billions of innocent people. So Buddy, Mac, and Scott are meeting with Raymond Wiley, who's researched the stones for many years. In fact, Wiley...
Now our Verify team is looking into claims about fires after several U.S. food processing plants went up in flames in recent months.
WCNC Charlotte's Megan Bragg looks into what...
Several people speculating online if something else is behind them. This
tonight.
Recent fires at food processing plants across the U.S. have several people speculating online if something else is behind them. This tweet notes a, quote, odd coincidence that, quote, 18 U.S. food processing facilities burned down in the last 6 months.
Behind the 5 million illegal immigrants who entered our country in the last 2 years are criminal cartels, the United Nations, and the U.S. government. Our investigations uncovered that while Americans are being told that the government is working to resolve the crisis, in reality, coordinated efforts with the United Nations and funding from the U.S. government using taxpayer money are facilitating the trafficking of illegal immigrants. We toured both sides of the U.S.-Mexico border to uncover how the U.S. and UN are quietly running the border crisis. This is documented in the investigative special feature program, The Border Deception. Our reporters also investigated many months into how drugs are pouring across the U.S. border, brought freely to America by criminal cartels who follow the illegal immigrants. With only about 18% of vehicles being searched by Customs and Border Protection, drugs are now the cause of over 100,000 U.S. overdose deaths per year. We put the results of our investigations into this special feature report, The Border Crisis and America's Fate. The mission of Epoch Times is to provide you with the facts so that you can form your own opinions. You need a news outlet that tells you the reality of the border crisis and how it is affecting our entire nation. Subscribe to the Epoch Times for $1 to watch the special feature program Border Deception and get this border crisis.
Joining us right now is Pennsylvania Congressman Fred Keller. He is a member of the Oversight and Reform Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for being here this morning. We've had your colleague James Comer on a number of times. He's been investigating this for some time now. What specifically will this resolution vote do?
Well, what we want to do is we want to make sure that the president doesn't have anything that would prevent him from making the decision in the best interest of the American people. I mean, you look at what he did in changing the rules for the Treasury for the suspicious activity reports, okay? Why do you change that? If there's nothing there, then that should be open and we should be able to see that. And it's our job as oversight to make sure that the American people are put first, and that's for whom we work, and we want to make sure that the administration has their best interest at heart when they're making decisions.
And just to be clear, the suspicious money reports that you're referring to, this would shine a spotlight on whether or not Hunter Biden's bank accounts were showing big deposits from perhaps Chinese officials.
It would show where the money might have come from if it did. But let's really take a look at this and shine a light of transparency on the activities of Hunter Biden. I mean, it's been a lot of reports about what happened, and I think that we owe it to the American people to get to the bottom of that. And I think the president, caring about his son, would want to put this to bed too.
Well, we're going to speak with Senator Ron Johnson coming up, and he has reported from his Senate investigation that the Biden family has taken in tens of millions of dollars from Chinese officials. Is that the reason that this administration canceled the China Initiative? The China Initiative was an initiative that was investigating intellectual property theft by Chinese companies. It was costing American businesses hundreds of billions of dollars. Do you think that he's canceling things like the China Initiative, being soft on tariffs, because he's compromised?
I would, hate to say why he's doing it. Certainly, if he's talking about running again, as they mentioned in the clip that you have there, certainly wouldn't want to have this story come out. But, I don't know why he's being soft on China or any other nation. I mean, what we need to do is we need a president that's going to put America first, and we should know that's going to happen. And this would be a lot of sunlight on an issue that the American people deserve answers to.
Well, he's also sold oil, strategic oil, to China. The administration is extending its plans to sell oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and now planning to sell up to 10 million barrels of crude oil in November as heating and electric bills are surging right now as the higher and the more demand comes from the wintertime, Congressman. Why are we selling oil from the Strategic Oil Reserve now, and are we getting to dangerously low levels in the Strategic Oil Reserve? And I guess the question again becomes, why sell it to China?
Well, first, why sell it at all? But then why sell it to an adversarial nation? And when you're spot on when you say about how low the reserve is, and this is not what it was designed for. Is bad political decisions. What the Biden administration and Democrats need to start doing is embracing American technology in producing energy. And we had a committee hearing last week where they were trying to paint how bad American energy companies are. But it's okay to sell oil to China and other countries, or it's okay to go and beg Saudi Arabia and Venezuela to pump more oil. If they really cared about America first and Americans, they'd stand up for us and make sure that we weren't seeing the inflation we're seeing because of the high cost of energy. And to somehow now try and sell this, and they're doing it through November. I have to wonder what happens in November that they want to do it through November. Well, I tell you what happens in November. They're concerned about their disastrous policies and how they're going to perform, and they're trying to mitigate the repercussions, at least until after the election, of their decisions. And all of a sudden now we're supposed to celebrate the gas is now only about $1.50 more than it was when he took office, but it was all the way up to $5 a gallon, and it's because of their policies. And until we get to the bottom of these issues, we're not gonna force them to do what's right until they know there's some spotlight on it.